Well, I'm nobody, and that's all right with me. Yeah, I'm nobody, and that's all right with me. My name will never be in lights or up on the marquee. Well, you're somebody, it's very plain to see. You're somebody, very plain to see. You fill the world with glee, 'cause you got the pedigree. Yeah, I'm nobody, that's all right with me. Yeah, I'm nobody, and that's all right with me. I'm just sitting on the front porch, dreaming, scheming, thinking of places I want to be. Yeah, you're somebody, it's very plain to see. You're somebody, very plain to see. You got the miles of smiles of somebody I want to see. Yeah, I'm nobody, and you're somebody. Yeah, I'm nobody, and you're somebody. Not just somebody. Ain't never met anybody like me. Yeah, I'm nobody, and you're somebody. Yeah, I'm nobody, and you're somebody. Not just anybody you see, 'cause tonight we're gonna sing, we're gonna dance, we're gonna make sweet whoopee. All right, I'm nobody. Now that we've established who we are, I appreciate it very much. Some of you just heard that I have traveled from all around the country to each of the state capitals and points of interest in between. And for me, some of the best things in making the documentary were the points of interest in between all of the state capitals that I traveled to. And when you travel like this, you come across things that are mostly serendipitous if you're paying attention. Well, I was up in the northern woods of Idaho, and they were the Sawtooth Mountains. I was traveling through or I should say rumbling through a United States Forest Service road. Just me, for miles and miles and miles. Huge trees, beautiful canopy, but just me rumbling through this and enjoying every minute of it. And then, out of seemingly nowhere, the canopy of trees goes away and a huge clearing opens up. And I stumble upon this thing. Have you ever seen one of these contraptions? It's called a dredge. This one happens to be the Yankee Fork Dredge, located on the Fork River, a tributary of the Salmon River in northern Idaho. I was the only one there when I stumbled upon this thing. I was quite shocked and very pleased. It was designed to dig gold. There was a 5.5 mile claim. They thought they were going to get $11 million worth of gold. Didn't happen. Most of the workers went deaf because it was such a loud noise that it made. And it was in operation from 1940 to 1952, more or less 24/7, 365 a year, except for a couple of years during the big war. Well, after I left, I spent a lot of time on that. You could get on it, and it's still there. If you want to go, you can go see it. I recommend it. But at the end of the day, I decided I was going to head back to Stanley, Idaho, which is off the Sawtooth Mountains, down through the Sawtooth Valley, in towards town. And as I'm rumbling along through the forest roads, winding my way down the mountains, I come across a cardboard sign. Cardboard sign, it says, "For sale, 1 talking dog." I said, oh my God, what? I am having the best luck. This is amazing. 1 talking dog. So I can't not stop in, so I go and knock on the door, of the guy who put this sign up. This is on his ranch. And I say, do you have a talking dog? And he says, yeah, he's out back. Go say hello. So I walk around back. I look down at the dog. He's kind of chilling, doing not much. He looks up at me. Our eyes lock. And I say, can you really talk? He looks up at me and he says, sure can, dude. I said, oh my God, you can talk. All right. So I say, well, what's your story? My story? Well, all right, since you ask, I'll tell you my story. I was abandoned as a pup, left on the side of the road. You know, I'm a rescue. We're all rescues nowadays. And I was picked up by 2 soldiers who were on leave from the Army, brought back to the base. I was given canine training, got a lot of training. I did 2 tours in Afghanistan and 3 tours in Iraq. I bit some nasty, icy butts and some nasty Talibani ass. I even got accommodations for it. I got a medal from the president. But I got tired of that, and I retired. I got pensions, and then I decided, though, I'll get a cushy job. I started to work at the TSA as a drug sniffer. That was kind of a fun job because I got to sniff drugs, but it was boring. So if I got bored, I would pretend that there were drugs. And I could pitch a fit, watch the humans go crazy. I could shut down an airport terminal like that. It was my kind of fun. And then I got tired of that. And I decided, well, you know, it's maybe time for me to retire. So I found this place, found that owner over there. He calls himself an owner, but, you know. And now I'm just sitting in the backyard, chilling, eating barbecue, sniffing tail, sniffing my own drugs, chewing on some old bones. I said, wait right here. I go to the owner and I say, how much do you want for that dog? And the owner says, $25. I said, $25? He's unique, why so cheap? He says, yeah, he's a liar. You can't believe a word he says. That's a true, that's, you know, here's a Don the dog who really is he's long gone. He did the vaudeville circuit from 1908 to 1910. He probably only did it one time, but they made money doing it, and he was actually a talking dog. The problem for the audience was he only spoke German. Hello, and there we go. If you're told a lie enough times, even if you tell the lie to yourself, it's easy for the lie to become your reality. Then that lie can become morally acceptable, and then that lie can become a tradition. There was a time in America when slavery was morally accepted as a tradition. Many Southerners still tell themselves a story of Northern aggression. Slaves were well-fed, well-cared for, and happy being slaves. Those stories are lies and regrettably are part of the foundation of systemic racism in America. People tell themselves that thoughts and prayers will help heal other people. That's a lie. Thoughts and prayers do not heal other people. An honest human outreach of kindness in times of trouble is thoughtful and helpful. But I mean, imagine a God who will only take action provided you convince him to do so through your thoughts and prayers. God sitting around waiting for the thoughts and prayers to come in as if he's counting the number of likes. God mulling it over as to whether or not you have enough likes as verification before God will take action. Supernatural beliefs, ghosts, astrology, astronomy, heaven, hell, Wiccans, Buddhists, Baptists, atheists, politics, business, scientific methodology, artwork, music, applied science, political science, gender, sports, nature. I'm successful. I'm a failure. I'm nobody. Critical thinking, any kind of thinking. These are some of the labels and topics on which the stories we tell ourselves are based, that inform our beliefs, which inform our decisions, which affects our cultures and society. Our beliefs often may become building blocks for conscious thought. And then there's the wall. Do you see it? No need to squint. We'll get to the wall shortly. If we are unaware of the stories we tell ourselves, we can't understand how they shape our happiness, our relationships, moods, and more. Some of the stories we tell ourselves are actually based in reality. Lots, maybe most, are completely fabricated, made up. We're really good at making up stories that we actually may believe to be true. Humans are expert rationalizers, but what we accept or reject as truth determines the speed at which our civilization evolves. Most of our stories are glorious theater. If it were not for real pain and suffering, real belly laughs, real sensations from a gentle touch, a beautiful fragrance, a great meal, I might conclude that life is just one large piece of fantastic theater based on the stories we tell ourselves. And you can either watch the show or be in it. And what a show. We tell ourselves stories in an effort to live a better version of life. We live in an uncertain world. Uncertainty has been with us forever. A messy, unpredictable world creates anxiety, so we create stories with easy narratives in an effort to stabilize the perceived chaos much of the world presents. If we didn't have our stories, our lives could slip into a nonsensical mess. Maybe some of us are already there. Our worldview would have difficulty distinguishing between sense and nonsense. A failure to discern a workable reality tends to create an irrational fear, and an irrational fear tends to leave one mentally incapacitated and exhausted. I used to joke that I had an irrational fear. I had a phobia. I called it transophobia, the fear of lying down on an interstate highway. In 2013, transphobia was added to the Oxford English Dictionary, a dislike or prejudice against transsexual or transgendered people, like homophobia. The more our stories diverge from reality, the more likely we may live in constant hypocritical or duplicitous conflict. Duplicitous conflict is a life of stress too often mitigated by unhealthy choices to ease the anxiety. And anxiety itself seems to be an epidemic, drinking, drugging, gaming, vaping, and more. Some of us check out, read, sleep, binge watch Netflix with a glass of red, take a walk in the woods, or maybe check out permanently. As an example of a life filled with duplicitous conflict is an influencer who acts as if religious dogma is the truth. If it involves living today to get a good seat in the afterlife, you've created a narrative that is inherently hypocritical or worse, duplicitous. When I'm asked, do you believe in an afterlife? I always answer yes, of course, just not yours. The stories we tell ourselves are often false narratives. Our brain can't help but to look at a series of facts that often have incredibly complex cause and effects relationships. Our brain can't look at these facts without trying to force a logical link between them. As a result, We often mistakenly assign meaning where there is no meaning. We create self-opposed obstacles from the stories we tell ourselves, all in an effort to comfort ourselves and present a happy face. One thing you can't hide is when you're crippled inside. We look for the sermon in the suicide, as Joan Didion is famous for saying. We look for the social and moral lessons in the mass murders of school children. We interpret what we see, select the most workable of the choices available, and create a rationalization that fits our narrative. It's like the fox and the grapes. You know the story, the fable, where the fox is trying to jump up and grab the grapes, and he keeps trying, he tries, get the grapes, want to get the grapes look great, I need a grape, I want a grape. He keeps trying, but he can't get them. He tries and he tries and he can't get them. So he gives up, and he walks away. And as he walks away, he looks back at the grapes, and he said, they probably would be sour anyway. Sour grapes is rationalization. The fox preferred to tell himself a more comforting story than to admit he didn't have the skills to reach the grapes. The world doesn't really care too much for our thoughts and feelings. The world moves on with or without us, but as long as we're here, we make the best of it. We make the effort to survive. We make the effort to thrive. But when you start with a false narrative, you will likely end with a false conclusion, whether you are a skeptic or a believer. Essentially, we are who we think we are. If we think of ourselves as someone who has been dealt a terrible hand in life, the chances are that this is the story that will guide our choices and our future. We are who we think we are, whether or not our view of ourselves is accurate. How much time do we spend reconsidering who we are? How much self-examination do we do? At which point in life do we stop trying, give up growing, or do we stop? Do we always tell the truth? Do any of us know people who blatantly lie, often in attempts at self-aggrandizement? We tend to spin our stories like a good public relations agent whose client is ourselves. Best foot forward, better to offer quasi-truths about ourselves or omit certain details than be caught evading or embellishing. Reputation is difficult to establish and delicate to manage, and an artless lie can destroy it all in a moment. Critical thinking is what you think about your own thoughts. The stories we tell ourselves often involve critical thinking, but not always. If we are still telling ourselves the same story from 20 years ago, we probably haven't thought too much beyond what we were thinking 20 years ago. Some people struggle to escape the past. Others seem to effortlessly float free. Too often we become complacent and comfortable with our self-narrative, and we do not want to be challenged. Humans can be like drops of water that follow the path of least resistance. But humans can also be like the salmon who swims upstream to accomplish life's goals. We are who we think we are. The skeptic seems to forever be looking for the exceptions. Skeptics tend to begin new encounters with a skunk eye. Well, here's some more malarkey coming my way. In fact, some of you might be thinking that right now. Then the skeptic begins their debunking effort to prove themselves correct, or at least rationalize the newfound so-called bunk to fit their narrative. And if it doesn't fit, then dismiss it as the drivel they first thought it to be. The skeptic's pursuit of happiness often seems to stem from their efforts to debunk the bunk that are other people's worldviews, or even just challenging a simple comment. Ever sit with somebody in a room having a conversation where they have to Google check everything that is said? Oh my God. What an occurrence. Sucks the joy right out of the room. Poor Joy. Just looking for supposed facts. Like Sergeant Joe Friday here from the 60s TV series Dragnet. Just the facts, ma'am, as if the skeptic has a claim on the truth. If anyone can lay claim to their own truth, then the truth is highly overrated, diluted by as many opinions and beliefs as there are people. It seems natural to define ourselves by a story that gives ourselves some explanatory power. There's a whole world of potential in front of us, and there are an infinite number of probability streams that lead to a decent future. A good way to tap into this is to escape our self-imposed obstacles through continued self-examination, constantly reevaluate in an effort to grow. The stories we tell ourselves are probably somewhat different than the stories we tell others. Storytelling is essentially an act of communication. Do we talk to our mother or our father in the same way we talk to our friends, peers, or lovers? Sometimes we speak carefully around certain issues, politics, religion, sex, money, all of the good stuff. But if we know those topics will upset certain people, we avoid those topics, or we may even avoid those people. Some people, typically those we know and trust and who we otherwise feel close to, get the fullest version of who we are. But we may also tell revealing truths to strangers who do not know us at all and who will never see us again, like strangers on a train. Here's a story that I've been telling myself and others for a long time. It's about the wall. Do you see it? We have a problem in America that begins with our First Amendment and is furthered by none other than President Thomas Jefferson in an effort to pacify the Baptists. When President Jefferson penned the phrase wall of separation between church and state, he had little to no idea how co-opted his intentions would become and how many organizations would make millions and millions and millions of dollars simply by keeping the fight about the metaphorical wall alive. This is a quote from the letter from Thomas Jefferson to the Danbury Baptist Church Association. Believing with you that religion is a matter which lies solely between man and his God, that he owes account to none other for his faith or his worship, that the legitimate powers of government reach actions only and not opinions, I contemplate with sovereign reference that the act of the whole American people which declared that their legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. The wall of separation between church and state is as imaginary as the gods themselves. All walls fall eventually. Berlin, China, Belfast, Whaling, Israel, Mexico, Trump's wall. This is a real photo from just last month. Somebody sneezed and it went over. The wall of separation of church and state has failed. It could never work as suggested. The wall is pretend. Just like religious beliefs, the wall is make-believe. If you begin with a false narrative, you are likely to end with false conclusions. The false conclusion here is that we continue to embrace an imaginary wall that is successful. The false conclusion is born from a false narrative where people claim God says to live in a particular way, yet others have no belief in any gods described by humans. Still others in government pass laws regarding religion that often needs to be interpreted by the United States Supreme Court. Meanwhile, all factions are asked to get on their side of the wall, tripping over each other, trying to figure out how. It's a perpetual clown show, except clowns are real. The make-believe religiosity which caused the imaginary wall to be evoked has been elevated to the supreme law of the land, courtesy of our First Amendment. All this time and effort stems from people who claim they believe they know what God wants, and others who say there ain't no God. There's consensus about neither the content of the mind of God nor a methodology for discerning the mind of God. Therefore, it is not God. It is people. It's always the humans. People use religion to manipulate, scare, and lie to other people, often while making a wealthy, tax-free, church-based living doing so. It's just another story. As George Carlin said, religion has easily the greatest bullshit story ever told. It's time to recognize the folly of trying to decide which crazy religious dogma versus secular opinions belongs on which side of the imaginary wall. No wonder there is so much confusion and frustration surrounding religion. It is impossible for good faith to maintain integrity with false narratives. It is time to get rid of the imaginary wall. The metaphorical wall did not stop the real-world Hobby Lobby from becoming exempt from a law its owners objected to by claiming their religious beliefs. Christmas is a national holiday. The word God is on our money. In God we trust is our national motto. The Pledge of Allegiance cites God. Lawmakers enacted a dubious Religious Freedom Restoration Act. As troublesome as all this may be, it is even more problematic that the above factual occurrences arise from people who merely claim deeply held beliefs that stem from the stories we tell ourselves. Beliefs are not facts, no matter how deeply or sincerely they are held. Beliefs are opinions. Yet, as much as I claim the imaginary wall of separation of church and state has failed, there is an exception to my premise. A huge success may be claimed by those who fundraise and make millions of dollars doing so in the name of protecting the pretend wall, or protecting religious liberty, or protecting a secular vision of America. Here, the wall is nearly perfect. These people are the enablers of an irrationality that serves a narrow and selfish purpose. What better way to keep the so-called righteous fight alive than to pretend we need to keep the so-called righteous fight alive? Both sides of the wall need conflict to consolidate their own tenuous grasp on power. Money. No one on either side of the wall wants to define what victory looks like. What is the end game? There is no end game, just game. It's the wrong fight. It's all pretend, except for the millions of dollars made by those who get paid to sustain the imaginary wall that supposedly keep church and state separate. It's like the divorcing couple fighting over the cow. One pulls at the head of the cow, the other pulls the tail, all the while the attorneys are milking the cow. It's the charade also is a reminder of the swindlers who sold the emperor his new clothes. I'm aware there are those who claim religion does good things too, yet religion has little to nothing to do with being good or bad. People do. Religion is too often merely an excuse for good or bad behavior. We, as individuals who are of sound mind and body, make good or bad decisions ourselves. The more we know, the better decisions we can make. Religion remains an unproven concept of good that preys on the needy while claiming to pray for the needy. We can do better as a society. As John Lennon mused imagine no religion. It's easy if you try. To be clear, I am not advocating the forceful cessation of religion. No, that is as bad as the worst crimes, lies, and manipulations of religion. I'm saying we can do better when we understand we are all in this together, if only for a short time. We do not need imaginary gods and centuries-old dogma created by people who didn't know where the sun went at night. We don't need centuries-old dogma to help us through the day if we're able to help each other along the way. The imaginary wall only confounds things further. Our real problems began in America when religious belief became elevated to the supreme law of the land. Via the First Amendment, religious belief should be afforded no more constitutional protection than a philosophy club. That's not what we have. Working toward that is a worthwhile goal. Pastors, imams, rabbis, and other self-appointed spokespersons for God should be allowed to speak freely from the pulpit on any topic they choose, including politics and endorsements. Religious landmark cases heard by the United States Supreme Court could have been avoided entirely or settled as free speech cases if religion were not part of our First Amendment. A fair, open, and free society should not fear persecution by our government because of the words we choose to express our stories. If there are a way to demote religiosity from the supreme law of the land, we should do so even while the religious whine that their religious liberty is under attack. Religion, the God business, is uniquely and intentionally referenced in the First Amendment, with instructions that Congress shall not make laws regarding a religious establishment, which is a noun, not a verb, or religious exercises. In other words, the government is supposed to remain neutral relative to churches and their counterparts. However, there is no constitutional requirement for the government to remain neutral regarding other nonprofit organizations. Therefore, tax exemptions for churches are the equivalent of tax subsidies for churches and should be considered unconstitutional. We, the people, pay higher taxes than we would if religious institutions paid their fair share. Churches use city services, our roads, our police, our fire departments, yet churches do not contribute to the coffers to pay their fair share for those services. Tax exemptions for property and building used for religious purposes are the largest cause of loss of revenue for municipalities. As Benjamin Franklin wrote in a letter to that famous Unitarian minister and philosopher, Richard Price, "When a religion is good, I conceive it will support itself. And when it cannot support itself, and God does not take care to support, so that its professors are obliged to call for the help of the civil power, it is a sign, I apprehend, of it being a bad one." Religion in America has enjoyed unprecedented government benefits and perks for a long time. What is liberating about religious liberty anyway? Money. Lots of tax-free money. It's time to fairly tax the God business for what it is. Mega churches equal mega bucks, and many of the religious leaders are mega wealthy. The religious tax advantages and subsidies must end. That's a worthwhile effort. As Mark Twain said, no church property is taxed, and so the infidel and the atheist and the man without religion are taxed to make up the deficit in the public income thus caused. It may be at some point the stories we tell ourselves should climax at the confluence of feeling good about ourselves, helping others, and a healthy awareness of our mortality. If you feel good about yourself, you are in a better position to help others. It's extraordinarily reciprocal. Is anyone here a billionaire? Billionaires, please. Anyone here know a billionaire personally? Anybody? Shaka Khan, or the guy who owns the Jags, what's his name? I don't know his name. Shad Khan. It's not Shaka Khan. Anybody know that guy? Nobody? Nobody? Can you think of anyone who may have any billionaires who may have successfully manipulated the Christian fundamentalist Republicans? This guy, he did. I have another song. It's another original. It's called The Billionaires Song. I'm going to go over to the piano and play it. But first, a sip of water. Sing along if you know it. We're just too busy to stop and lend a hand. We may get involved in something we don't understand. We walk the other way, not hearing what they say. We think you're wrong and feel we're right. We're glad you do what we say. We got giblets in our gravy, our hair sassooned and wavy. Montego Bay maid does our slaving, upstairs and down in all of our houses. A well-stocked bar with drinks of 8 ounces. We got stock in IBM, a condo in Magdalene, a solid gold fountain pen once used by Sun Yat-sen. The original Picasso hangs on a hall wall, the original Rembrandt we keep in the vault. And lots of CDs, oh, we count them happily, we count them happily, we count them happily. This is the billionaire song. We don't care if we're wrong. We're 0.0001% strong. We can buy the competition. We can buy the politician. We can buy a religion. We don't need your permission. So don't be forlorn. We know you play along. We know you play along. We know you play along when you start singing our song. We got lots of money, we really are well-to-do. A Swiss bank has a scenic mountain view. We got money in horses, money in oil, money in real estate, so much we can't tabulate. We got money in gold, our billfold's hard to hold. We know we're growing old, but a great way I'm told. When no taxes, oh, no taxes, no taxes, no taxes, no taxes, no taxes have been withheld. This is a billionaire song. We don't care if we're wrong. We're 0.0001% strong. We can buy the competition. We can buy the politician. We can buy a religion. We don't need your permission. So don't be forlorn. We know you play along, we know you play along, we know you play along when you start singing our song. Thank you. I'm going to do one more, and then I'd like to ask you a question. Meanwhile, be thinking of that question I'm going to ask you. This is another original. It's called We All Live a Life. Man with a black lung still smokes through a tube. The lady with the president is just another boob. For $19.95 you get wipers and a lube. Are you trapped with a mouse in your corporate cube? Dead rats lying on a mosque floor. A gallon of milk sits sour in the door. The painted lady is dressed like a whore. It's all good smiles, the conquistador. The boys in the band play off key in the garage. Yeah, they don't seem to mind. It's a Swedish massage. One day they'll be big and have their entourage. Or is it just a dream? A rosy glass mirage. Some of us die with flies on our eyes, and some of us live with lies in our eyes, and some of us pray to win a lotto prize, and some of us grow old and finally realize that we all live a lie. You want to be unique, but you're one of many. Some have none, others too much plenty. Do you still wear the shoes, the ones with the penny? Your money or your life? I'm thinking Jack Benny. Jefferson and Hemmings made quite a pair. Slave girl and freedom master, wonder was it fair? Slaves with Reefus human, weren't you aware? There's something about justice just isn't all there. Little boys and little girls playing in the breeze, swapping tongues, scraping dung, learning the ABCs. Giggles and wiggles, they laugh when they fight. When the moon is hung and the swinging stars have swung. Some of us die with flies on our eyes, and some of us live with lies in our eyes, and some of us pray to win the lotto prize. Some of us grow old and finally realize that we all live a lie. Mrs. Cowpoke said to Mango down under, does a subway chime in the Congo? I wonder. No, 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 it rolls like thunder. I'd give you a call, but I can't shake this slumber. Judas alone, walking down the street, wondered aloud about the kissing disease. He knew what he'd do, but not what he'd done. The weight of his kiss can't be undone. Same-sex marriages polarized Vermont. Look at Uncle Harry, he's now the wacky aunt. Sweet boys and tough girls endure all the taunts. Is her name Billy, Jean, Jenny, Kanish, or Lamont? Young man looked through her wide eyes to her soul, said, let's get married, and then we'll be whole. 3 wives later, he's trying to control. Back off, let go, don't control. Some of us die with flies on our eyes, and some of us live with lies in our eyes, and some of us pray to win a lotto prize. Some of us grow old and finally realize that we all live a life and then it's over.